On today's episode of Medium at Heart, we get into my sister Annette's open heart surgery and how that prompted her to embrace her gift of mediumship. And why is there crumb cake on the set today? Well, we have that story too. Hi there, I'm Angela.
And I'm Annette.
And my sister is a medium.
And I connect you to your loved ones on the other side.
Yes, and we also want to say hello to producer Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Hello. I'm going to come up right over here. Look at that. Hey, what's up, you guys?
Thank you, Ben.
Glad
it's so
to have
great
you
to
back.
Be here. Thank you. We thank you so much for your support and encouragement as we talk about a really important topic today. This is about, Annette, I think it's a story, of course, about what prompted you to truly embrace your gift of mediumship, but it's also a really inspiring story of overcoming challenges and the before, during, and after of facing something in your life that seems so much bigger than something that you're able to handle. And yet you would be amazed at how you are able to nurture the situation and make it actually part of your narrative in a positive way. So let us begin. You had open heart surgery at a very young age.
Yes, I was in my late 20s when I had found out that I needed open heart surgery. But if you remember growing up, Mom always knew something was wrong with my heart. And I would get sick a lot. And I know remember when she used to take me to the doctor, she used to say, you have to check her heart, there's something wrong. And they would just say it's a heart murmur. And I guess maybe back then they didn't do the extensive testing they do now, perhaps. But she always knew that. But yeah, I found out when I was in my late 20s that I actually needed the surgery.
So what preceded that? What made you go to the doctor?
So I had been exercising. So I started to exercise and ride my bike. And I started to get lightheaded out of nowhere. And then, my friends and I, we would go out dancing and I would start to get lightheaded. And then a few times I had passed out from it. So I went to my primary. And then that's how it started. And my primary said, go see a cardiologist. Went to go see a cardiologist. And he did a few tests. And then he said, I'm just going to take a chest x-ray to confirm what I think it is. But we'll talk about it after. So I went and had a chest x-ray. And then he viewed it. And he said, okay, Annette, what you have is you have holes in your heart. It's called atrial septal defect. And it can be repaired with something called a butterfly that they do through your leg. And if you're not a candidate for that, then you need open heart surgery. And I just had this gut feeling that I was going to need open heart surgery.
Annette, what was it like when you knew that this process now was going to begin?
So, I was at a time in my life where everything was just amazing. And then all of a sudden, after all the tests, the extensive testing, I had the test. One time I was in the hospital and I had to have a test where they go through, I think it's through your leg. And I want to say it's a main artery through your leg. And I remember laying on the table and you can see what they're doing on the screen.
Oh my God.
I don't really know the medical terms. I really don't know. It looked like he was feeding something through it to get to the heart. Anyway, I'm sure people who've gone through it or medical professionals know what I'm talking about. But I remember saying to Dr. Slama, I said, I'm really, really nervous. He's like, it's okay. We'll take care of you. So as we're in the room, he goes, I've given grown men athletes the amount of drugs I've given you and they're fast asleep. And I go, I told you I was really nervous. Now, I wasn't nervous. Obviously, it calmed me, but I didn't fall asleep. But anyway.
So you went through that and then what happened?
Then he said, you're not a candidate for the procedure through your leg because we believe there's more than one, but we won't really know how many till we go in. So he referred me to this doctor who specializes in non-invasive surgery. And he was young. He was probably fresh out of school. And so I went to go see him. And it's so interesting, the process. It's like they just schedule it like, okay, when can you bring your car in for repair? They're like, okay, we're just going to schedule you it was June 1st, be at the hospital 6 a.m. and, we'll take care of everything. But it was a process leading up. Remember you took me to these, I don't know if you remember this, but we had to go to these classes at Morristown Hospital prior to the surgery because they talk about what happens during and after.
Was I a good student?
Yeah.
Can I be honest? I don't remember a lot of that part of it.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, this is quite a few years ago. I don't remember that part of it, but it's a great idea that we did that.
It's a great.
I just hope I passed all the
You
tests.
did.
She's here today to tell the story, so I must have done okay to take care
You
of her.
did. Remember that breathing machine that they showed me that I was going to have to breathe? You have to get you breathe into it and the ball rises and you have to
Yes.
get it to the top. And I couldn't do it. Like after the surgery, I couldn't even get to the first line. It's incredible. And they do talk about depression being a huge factor in patients who have open heart surgery. They talked about that in that class too.
So how long was it between the time, if you remember,
I do.
that you got this information and they scheduled you for the surgery till the surgery?
5 months. I found
5
out in
months.
January.
Wow. Okay.
Well, it was December, January, and then I had it in June.
Okay. I do remember this. So
January,
I
yeah.
remember taking a leave of absence from work.
Yes.
And telling them I had to be with my sister to help take care of you. I was here in Florida at the time working at a television station. Thank you to my boss who was so understanding that I was going to be able to go to New Jersey and help take care of you. So the morning of the surgery, tell me your mindset, because I know there are a lot of people who listen, members of the medium and heart community, people listening who have to go through very difficult things, Annette. How did you get up that morning and know what you were about to face and move yourself forward through it?
I go back there in my mind and it brings back that feeling of I think it was my lowest point in life. I was so scared and I couldn't, it was just all consuming. And you had to do things to prep for the surgery. And I just remember doing them thinking, I can't believe this is actually happening. And I don't really know if I even slept, to be honest. I don't know how I got there.
You just did it.
I just did.
I feel
When
like
you
you were-
have to, you just do. You just do.
Well, I remember, okay, so the day of surgery comes.
Yeah, and I told you the story. I said in one of the other episodes, I was in my room and I had to prepare a little bit more prior to. And the nurse came in and said, "We're going to come up for you. We'll bring you down in a couple minutes." And that's when my life changed forever. I saw the most, I don't even know if I can explain the beauty and peaceful feeling of this white light above, because I prayed from my soul and I said, "Please God, send me a sign that everything's going to be okay, because I really need it right now, because I didn't know if everything was going to be okay." And then I saw this light, and then I told you I saw Uncle Tony. And then I just knew everything was going to be okay.
And can I just tell you how close you and Uncle Tony were? And he
Oh,
had
yeah.
passed a few years earlier.
Yeah.
So my sister and my Uncle Tony had a very special relationship. And when I'll never forget how cute, she would go over to Uncle Tony's when mom had to work and dad had to work. And he would, spend the day with you and you would play cards.
He taught me how to play cards. He taught me how to play blackjack. He taught me how to play poker. And we would play with pennies.
Yeah, so it made
And
sense.
he would always have an Entenmann's cake or something there. Those were the greatest times.
I remember how close you were with Uncle Tony. I feel like as we have these childhood experiences, there's always like one relative that we're closer
Yeah.
with. And you and Uncle Tony had such a special bond. So I think it makes sense that when you were preparing for surgery and you were asking for a sign and you were praying for some indication that it was going to be okay, that it was Uncle Tony.
Yeah, it makes such complete sense that he was right there with me. And I'm
So you
so grateful.
saw him.
Saw him like a solid, that I call it a solid, like I'm seeing you. He was right there. And I thought, okay, thank you. And the white light was something I've never felt before in my life.
And it was peaceful.
Unbelievably peaceful. I can't even explain it. It was like, okay, everything's going to be all right.
Oh, I just exhaled thinking about that. I remember the day. So I was in the waiting room.
Yeah, what was that like?
It was really difficult. It was really, really, really difficult, but I had tremendous faith. I never panicked. I don't know that I really cried. I'm an inside crier. I'm an inside crier. And I just remember wanting to be really strong for everyone else, our parents, and just feeling like it was going to be okay. I just knew it. And I thought your doctor was amazing. I knew you had the best surgeon possible.
I did. He was phenomenal. I mean, the scar is almost gone now. I mean, I know in years it fades, but he was incredible. And I have a funny story about the doctor. So after the surgery, he would come and make his rounds. And all the nurses would come in my room, and I would be like, "Oh my goodness, what?" Because you're in so much pain,
From your sternum.
from your sternum, and then you're wearing this thing around your neck, which was like a box which monitored your heart, and it was right on the scar or the incision. And they would come in and they'd be like, "Annette, we're just going to stay in here because Dr. Brown's doing his rounds, and your room is next."
Because he's so handsome.
So
he was
funny.
the quintessential like movie star TV
Too
show
funny.
doctor, but he was really quiet. What I really liked about him was he was serious, but also just very calming.
So calming. I mean, he's just like, "Okay, let's do this."
So here I walk into the ICU. Now the ICU, it's a room full of people. Everyone is assigned a nurse. And I'm looking around and it's mostly older patients. That, as you would expect. And there's Annette with her beautiful blonde hair splayed out on the pillow, just resting beautifully and peacefully. And we were allowed to go in and visit. And I just remember thinking, this woman is my Wonder Woman, respect, admiration, inspiration for the rest of my life, because what you went through at such a young age was just, again, I go back to the word inspiring. So then... Go ahead. Do you have another hospital story?
So when I was in the ICU, I have two. One's funny and one's not.
Be warned.
I'll tell the funny one first.
Okay.
So you have to lay flat for 24 hours. I mean, these nurses are amazing. You're right. I had my own nurse at the bottom of my bed. Her desk was right there. They were roll tables they used. And I remember seeing, I don't know what his title was, but he was going around removing the tubes, I guess your chest tubes. And I said, from what I saw, when he came to me, I said to my nurse and to him, "Oh, no. You need to give me massive amounts of pain medicine because I can't feel what I just saw those people go through. And you're on a massive amount anyway." And she said, yeah. And so the nurse gave me more pain meds. It still hurt, but I was like, oh.
Wow. And you had to see all this like going
Oh,
going on.
no. But anyway, so that night, I know that there were certain times you guys all came. And I hear the nurses at the nurses station, Angela, and they're like, "Well, she can't come in. It's not visiting time." And I said, "That's Mom.
Mom's here.
Mom's here." And she had come already, but she came back. And I said to my nurse, "Look, I know it's not visitors' time," because they were strict about that in the ICU. I go, "Can you just let her in?" And so she came in. I knew she was going to get her way in anyway.
Oh, yes, that's Mom.
And she just came in and she stripped the blanket off me. And she checked here and she checked here. She's like, I was swollen. And she checked my legs and my
as a
ankles
nurse,
and everything.
She knew exactly what to look for.
So
as a
we were
nurse.
actually, she told me the story much later in life about how she was trying to convince these people to get in and who she knew in the hospital that she could convince to get her in. But it was funny how she told it. But she got in.
But was this not the hospital that she
Originally
worked
at Morristown.
So, you talk about the, I don't know, coincidences or fate or just these moments in life. My mother worked in the same hospital as a nurse when she was starting out her nursing career. She came to this country at the age of 23, and it was the same hospital where Annette had her open heart surgery. So that gave, I think, some comfort.
Oh, yes.
So now it's time for Annette to leave the hospital.
Okay. So, in order to leave the hospital, you have to walk up and down these steps. And there's only like 4 or 5 because there's kind of staircase that go like this and then around. So I said, "Oh,
so they said
I can
to
do
you
this."
You can go home when you walk.
Because I said,
these
"I
steps.
want to go home."
Okay.
So I said, "Fine, let's go." So I go to the stairwell. I got 1 step. I couldn't go any further.
Okay.
It was so painful. And I was so weak. I'm like, I thought the nurse was like, "This is what happens." And I said, "Okay, tomorrow I'm going home. Tomorrow I'm going to do it." Woke up the next morning. I told Dr. Brown when he made his rounds, "I'm going home today." He said, "Okay, well, you know what you have to do." And Angela, it was the 3rd time I tried, and I did it. It was the hardest thing ever.
But you were
But I
determined.
believed, and I had faith, and I wanted to go home.
You were done. You were ready to go home and move on with everything.
So I was done. But yes, and then
Well, I was tasked, and I was the one. I was happy to do it. I was happy to be there to take care of you. I had to drive Annette home from the hospital. So, a caregiver's perspective, Annette had to hold a pillow. There was a heart pillow, a heart-shaped pillow that Annette had to hold close to her chest to prevent. How would you describe it, Annette? To
okay,
prevent-
so they described it to me as like if you have to sneeze or cough, you have to squeeze this pillow because the pain is excruciating. Well, because this is all broken. So
Right.
like you're
The
moving.
sternum area is
so you
broken.
hug the pillow. Like I hugged it all the time. They said like for anything, like even as you're with a story
Okay.
you're going to tell, you have to hug the pillow.
So we're driving home, and I know what my job is to get Annette home, and I think it was like a 20 or 30-minute drive.
Yes.
Right. So I get her into the car, and she's hugging her pillow. And these particular New Jersey roads, if you've ever driven in New Jersey, you know that they are worn by potholes, and there are bumps, and it's not like smooth pavement. And every time we would go over a bump or into a pothole, Annette would wince, and I think almost cry.
It was painful.
Oh, and so for me as the driver, as someone who just had to get her home, I just blocked it out. And I had to remove myself sort of from what she was going through so that I could do my job, which was to get her home. Because if I had too much empathy for what she was going through, I wouldn't be able to get through it and just get her home. I mean, I felt so deeply for what she was going through, but I also knew what my job was.
And you did it well. And I was probably mean, and I'm sorry.
Who could ever blame you? But you were not mean, and you had, even if you were, I think you had every right to be. So we get you home, and now the process begins of healing, the healing process. And so you were resting for some time, and I would help you with your stuff as other family members would. And there was one day when we had to try to put your compression socks on. Okay. So those of you who've been through medical things understand that compression socks are the tightest socks ever that you could wear. Some people even wear them to fly. But I would try to get them on her, and I would start laughing so hard because I couldn't pull them up that she was in excruciating pain from laughing so hard, hugging the pillow,
crying,
and I
crying
was on
and
the
laughter
floor
and
going
pain.
into the other room because I didn't want her to be in pain from laughing so hard. So my mother came over finally, and she was able to put on the compression socks.
Yeah. I remember. Yes, that was fun.
And then I do want to talk about the music component for you, because music is such an important part of everybody's life. There are songs that connect us to times in our lives and people of our lives. But for you, music played an important role in your recovery.
Music played an important role in my recovery. It was definitely one of my feel-goods, thank God, to escape it. But there's two things when during my recovery, they couldn't get my heart rate right. I don't know if you remember that. And I would feel my heartbeat. You're not supposed to feel it. It was irregular. So I would listen to music. I'd put my headphones on and listen to music in hopes of not hearing it or feeling it. And I would escape at that time. And remember how they had to, so I remember I had a basket of medicine that I had to from every room because they tried everything. And finally I said to the doctor, I can't do this anymore. You have to fix my heart. I can't take these pills. And he said, well, the last resort is to use the defibrillator. And if that doesn't work, you're just going to have to live with it. And I thought, no, it's going to work. And I'm going to manifest and have faith that this is going to work. So I went into the hospital and I said to the anesthesiologist, look, I get anxious. I'm going to tell this guy.
You're going to tell him nothing. This isn't going to work.
It's not going to put me to sleep. So I said, I get really anxious. So I need to you need to give me more. And I don't remember anything else.
I think he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He's like, please.
So I woke up probably 10 or 20 minutes later. And I don't know why I asked this question. I said, how long did it take? And he said, it took about 10 minutes. And I said, did it work? And he said, yes.
Annette, I can't imagine.
Thank you. And that was actually very good for me because that's when I started to believe, okay, yes, I'm going to just use, my powers that I have in life to manifest things and really, really have faith and believe that things can happen.
And be okay.
And I remember during my recovery, I had to walk. It was super important for your heart. So I would get to the end of the driveway and I couldn't do that anymore. And then I would get a little further to the neighbor's driveway and I had to turn around and I thought, I'm going to listen to music. So I created a playlist and I put on my headphones and I said, okay, I'm going to walk to one song. I'm going to walk and I'm going to sing. It doesn't matter how far I get. It's going to be a good song and I'm just going to keep going. And before you knew it, I had a playlist and I was jogging.
And there was a certain song though. Was it Fleetwood Mac?
It was Fleetwood Mac and Daughtry.
Wow.
Which got me, to such a good place physically. I would escape with that.
What a good idea. What a good way to allow yourself to make progress, to the songs.
It's definitely, and that's why I tell people music is so powerful. And now when I hear those songs or I play those songs, I go back to a place that makes me feel empowered. I will purposely play them when I need to, face a challenge in my life, or I need to gain strength from within. Those songs bring me to a place where I overcame what I have to say, like my darkest times in life. And I also discovered after listening to the music was when like The Secret started to become popular, and I just loved it. And I thought,
law of attraction.
The law of attraction. It just was part of what I did when my mediumship, and I was practicing on my friends, and I was, reading The Secret and practicing that in my head. And I just, that day on, everything just sort of took off for me.
What an intersection of events. Talk about a life-changing event on many levels.
Yes, absolutely.
Surgery.
Yeah.
And then there was one day that, oh my gosh, I'll never forget. I was taking care of Annette, and
I know what she's going to say.
She wanted to vacuum. Now, I am not a great housekeeper. Okay. But I mean, at all. It's like, I'm the worst. But Annette really likes it clean and neat space. She's just not like neatness and organization comes very naturally for her. And so part of her routine pre-surgery was, you would vacuum. So after the surgery, you insisted on vacuuming. And I said, you cannot vacuum. I cannot let you do this. Till finally I had to say, okay, I'm going to give up. She really wants to do this. And I'll just supervise. I'll just watch her as you did your little bit of vacuuming, understanding that this was something you needed to do for yourself.
It had nothing to do with the house being clean. Because as you know, I didn't want visitors. Only, you, mom and dad came, like family came over, nobody else. Because I just wasn't feeling good at all. It was more about being able to do something, since I couldn't do anything. Like I couldn't brush my teeth, I couldn't brush my hair, wash it. Like I couldn't move anything here. It hurt too much
in this area.
So when I started to get better, I was like, no, I need to vacuum to just be able to have a little bit of independence. So it had nothing to do with you. I'm sorry if I was mean. I know I was mean. I take it all back.
You were so allowed. You were not mean. You were just really.
I was insistent.
You were insistent. So that happened.
And it hurt. So I had my own karma. And that's that.
You had to do it, Annette. You had to do it for yourself. So I want to share something. Ben, can you pull up the article so after this, Annette, there's a heart group. Or what was this little heart group? Or a little
it was called
newsletter.
Mended Hearts. It was a heart group that came to visit you, and they were in the meetings as well. And it's called Mended Heart Association, I believe. Oh, it's been so long. And they were volunteers who had gone through it, and they visit patients in the hospital because they know, what it's like.
Well, you wrote, so you did an interview with the Mended
he
Hearts
called me on the
group.
phone.
They had a newsletter, and this is what they said. In the almost 50 telephone interviews that this editor has conducted to gather the information on which these biography columns are based, he has never faced the situation when he heard a baby crying in the background until he placed a call to Annette. And that baby was her infant son, Joseph. On the basis of this information, many readers may assume that Annette is much younger than most of our other members, and those readers are correct. And then he goes into talking about your diagnosis in January of 1988. Doctors discovered several holes in the septum. This condition is called atrial septal defect, a congenital problem. But it was corrected by Dr. John Brown in a procedure 1988 at Morristown Memorial Hospital. So now you are a rock star to the Mended Hearts Club.
I know. I loved it. I didn't like my nickname so much because I just didn't think it was too pretty. But they called me Swiss cheese in the hospital because Dr. Brown said that's what it looked like when they went in.
So when they went in, there was more than they realized. Wow, that's a lot.
I'm lucky. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you a story too prior to surgery about how the universe works, okay? And how we have loved ones looking out for us. So about a year before my surgery, I'd gone to the doctor and I had been taking this medicine so my regular doctor wasn't there. There was a covering physician that saw me during my appointment, and he said, I'm going to switch your medication because there's been recent studies, not a lot done, but there's been recent studies that this can cause a stroke. I don't know how, true that's going to be or how much research is going to be done, but I'm going to change it. So I thought, okay. And so when I was going through all these tests and everything, and after the surgery, they said, had you had a stroke because of so many holes in your heart, that would have been it. And I thought, and then that story didn't come back to me until, Angela, like 3 years after my recovery, and it just popped into my head, and I just looked up and I said, thank you.
Wow.
Incredible.
Oh my gosh, Annette.
So
the timing of everything.
It's just amazing.
God is good.
God is good. God is good. Always believe, have faith, and know that we do have powers to manifest things that we want in life.
And I think that, Annette, I do believe that going into the process and into the surgery with faith, positivity, optimism, I think there's an energy around that. I've been told that in the past when I've had nothing compared to what you've had. Just be optimistic, be positive. It sets a tone, it sets an energy. It's not easy to do. Believe me, we know that when you're going through something or when a loved one is going through it. But the more you can hold on to that faith and hold on to whatever it is.
You have to have faith. Like that was the ultimate test of faith, I feel.
However, Annette, had you not opted for open heart surgery, what you also knew is that there was a backup plan because someone that you worked with liked to make crumb cake for you, Crumb Cake Bob.
So I worked with, this is when I had found out I needed the heart surgery. I was working at a law firm and Bob, everybody used to talk about Bob's crumb cake. And so Crumb Cake Bob was his nickname. So right before I was going on leave to have my surgery, he made me this crumb cake. That was literally all crumb. It was so good. And he said, eat a lot of this cake because maybe that'll fill the hole.
Because the butter will plug it up.
It'll plug it up. That'll fill the hole.
So that is why we have crumb cake on the set today, as much as you can see it. And to this day, we have a special place in our hearts for crumb cake and anyone who makes crumb cake. And who doesn't love crumb cake?
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, he was great. That was a wonderful thing to say. And now here we are today, Annette, all these years later.
I don't know where the time went.
All these
years later.
And you feel great.
I feel amazing. I feel so good. It's interesting, Angela. Probably about a year or two after my surgery, I would take a deep breath and I was like, wow, I never knew that's what it was supposed to feel like because I could never take that deep breath in life.
So for 28 years.
But that was all I knew. So I didn't know anything was different until I took that deep breath, like when I was at my 2-year checkup. And I thought, I've never taken a deep breath like that before. This is the greatest feeling. I'm so grateful.
Wow, what a story. Annette.
It's a good story. Yes.
It's a really remarkable
And that's
story.
why I, also how we talked about, how my mediumship really came to fruition. And I of course I practice it now, but I started to practice it after my surgery because that was part of the deal I made.
What, that you would now?
I promise I will share my gift if you just get me through this.
To help other people.
To help other people, which I love to do. And that's why I'm a medium at heart, because I know that that's what I'm supposed to do in this life.
Yes, and hence the name of our podcast. And we did have one of our listener viewers ask us, why do you call it Medium at Heart?
Yes.
And now, my loved ones, you know the answer. So
why.
Thank you, Annette, for sharing so much of that.
Well, thank you for helping me and being there through the entire process.
It was an honor and a privilege. And thank you for being part of the Medium at Heart community. It means the world to us. When you follow us on Spotify and you become a subscriber on YouTube, that empowers us to continue to make this podcast. And so we would love for you to be a part of the Medium at Heart community. Also, please do follow us on our socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and you'll find out when new episodes are coming out. And we just really want you to be part of what we are trying to do. So you are very, very important to us, and we appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts.
Yes, absolutely. Please continue to send me texts and, DMs and messages. It means so much to me. And most importantly, don't forget your feel goods.
Annette, feel goods. I do want to very quickly, because I know you're like, how many feel goods are you supposed to do?
Well, I say start off with like, let's do one a day.
Okay, so the feel goods are all about, creating this beautiful life for yourself of authenticity and having that feeling of, being just feeling good, like you said. This week, I wanted to report to you what I did.
Okay, good. Go.
So I was an avid reader as a kid. I would just, Nancy Drew books, I would just like
Yes,
one a day.
I remember.
And I hadn't read an actual book in so long and I missed it. And, you get busy and I got myself a book. I got myself the Al Pacino biography. And
good.
every night before I go to sleep, I read a couple pages. And let me tell you, Annette, I'm so glad I did it. It is an absolute feel good.
Yes.
So
yes,
I owe you
I'm
credit
so
for
proud of you and so happy you did that. Absolutely. And I'll tell you my feel good. I actually listened to the sound to Daughtry, the one that I used to jog to during my recovery or after it when I was feeling even better. And that just made me feel so good.
Wow, that's good. So send us your feel goods and your questions. You could email us directly, mediumatheart@gmail.com. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. See you soon.